covering sports for 30 years. It's one thing for an exhibition here, there, whatever, but you can't continue to be allowed to build a career without getting into the ring with fighters. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon.
But does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. But I think boxing damages itself left, right and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway.
Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter.
Stephen A. Smith goes nuts on Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight has become one of the loudest and most explosive reactions in the boxing world, and whether people agree with him or not, one thing is clear: Stephen A. Smith is fired up like never before.
Continue to get away with stepping into the ring against strikers for the UFC, basketball players, unknown boxers.
The moment the rumors and reports started circulating about Jake Paul stepping into the ring with Anthony Joshua, Stephen A. had his take loaded, and he didn't waste a second blasting the entire idea, calling it a stain on boxing, a cash grab circus, and an insult to heavyweight legends who spent their lives building their legacy.
Is everything that's wrong with boxing. It's a money play, nothing wrong. I don't begrudge Anthony Joshua getting 50 million quid for an easy night's work. That's fantastic returns. Most people would take it. But from the boxing world, Jake Paul is now a professional fighter. Whether we categorise him as a YouTuber or not, he's licensed to fight, which means that the governing body should be suggesting that this is not a fight that possibly they should be looking to sanction.
Yeah.
But they will, because the sanctioning fees will be enormous. Anthony Joshua will not lose his legacy like some people are suggesting, because no one will remember it in 2 or 3 years' time. If he embarrasses himself in there, they'll remember it. But if he goes in and knocks him out in 30 seconds flat, or turns it into a little bit more of a sort of Jake LaMotta raging bull, holding him up for a few rounds and then knocking him out, then people will forgive it. He'll get a big bag of money, which most people in the world would take, and move on. And then we'll see if he fights anybody meaningful in the year. I mean, it is like sport has become. And what I got my head around on Saturday night was the entertainment value of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. The fighting of itself, I could be all pious about it, but the entertainment industry is so prevalent in sport now. This is entertainment. This is going to have hundreds of millions of people watching it. And Anthony Joshua gets paid, and Jake Paul hopefully gets flattened.
Simon, I know the money's there, but does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. But I think boxing damages itself left, right and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway. But I think it does get damaged.
Even if it's an exhibition fight, which it might well be.
Well, then what's the jeopardy in that? If it's an exhibition fight, which it shouldn't be, if it's a proper fight, then Jake Paul is going to get demolished.
He questioned how a YouTuber turned boxer with barely a handful of fights against past their prime MMA guys and small-scale opposition suddenly earned the right to challenge a 2-time heavyweight world champion known for obliterating giants like Vladimir Klitschko and dismantling some of the most dangerous powerhouses in the sport.
Anthony Joshua's desire to be in the history books, to be a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire. Pick up 50 million along the way. Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK. Would he win a British title? No, I don't think so. So now they're putting this domestic level fighter in with a former heavyweight 2-time champion of the world. The weight is 245. So I think the last time Anthony Joshua weighed around that was when he beat Usyk. That means he's got to be fight fit on point, because his last fight he was 18 stone. I think it was 254 against Danny Dubois. So now he basically saying you've got to get yourself in position, get yourself fit, and get yourself ready for fight. It's not tiddlywinks. This is a fight. It's not a push and a pull, So as long as it's not a push and a pull, and don't put me down and don't touch me in the build up to this fight. Remember when McGregor and Mayweather, they had this little side of don't touch me in the build up to this. If this is a real legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. If not crazy, he's super brave, and it'll be interesting to see.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, because you said that before when we spoke about it being a proper fight or not. And Eddie Hearn and Paul's promoter, Nikisa Badarin, have both said in the last couple of days it will be a proper fight. And now you've heard the details, 8 rounds, 3 minutes a round, 10-ounce gloves. Do you believe it when they say that it's going to be a proper fight?
I do believe it because AJ's involved, and I think AJ'd struggle to he's going to take enough slack flack over this. But again, it's money talk. So I think AJ will struggle because it's an all-win situation. If he goes in there and Jake Paul lasts the distance, what does he tell you about AJ? Apart from he's just earned an extra 15 million quid. If he goes there and struggles with Jake Paul, then what do you say about AJ? Your heydays are well and truly over. If he goes in there and knocks him out, then I'll say that's to be expected. So the glory, there's probably not much glory in it, apart from the haters of Jake Paul to say, right, I've got rid of this kid. I think it's very brave of Jake Paul. So now the problem child has got to believe this fight's actually happening.
According to Stephen A., this is not entertainment, this is exploitation, where boxing organizations and promoters don't care about belts or rankings anymore, only about clout, viral fame, and pay-per-view money, and Jake Paul has somehow become the perfect vehicle for that business model. Stephen A. ranted that Jake Paul has zero business even being in the same negotiation room as Anthony Joshua, let alone touching gloves in a sanctioned fight, and he ripped promoters for rewarding popularity instead of skill, saying that real boxers grinding for years in the gym are getting skipped over while social media hype trains jump the line to the biggest paydays of their careers.
On the other hand is, but I'm not going to say he's coming into his prime because he had some great wins earlier on in his career before he lost to Usyk twice. And by the way, when he did lose to Usyk, the last one was a split decision. It was a pretty close fight. So now this fight is matched, and I just want to look at the tail of the tape. Now looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else. What comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. Now, come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pound versus 252 pound. We got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where AJ's had 43, but 43 of them are including at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, he won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost one. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight, and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for...
He even questioned Joshua's motivations, wondering why a man with Olympic gold, championship belts, and a history of knocking out elite heavyweights would suddenly be interested in a matchup that looks like bullying and mismatch from every possible angle, unless the paycheck placed in front of him was simply too irresistible to refuse.
It takes for Jake Paul to do this, as well as for Joshua. You know, this isn't Joshua's first time doing a spoof fight. He fought Francis. That was a spoof fight. Francis had never won boxing before, but we understood he has fought before. It was one of those things where when you got through it, like coming into the front side, I'm sure Anthony Joshua trained plenty hard for it. But coming out the back, he probably realized I didn't need to train for that at all. That was fun. That was a good time. I got to hear him call my names. I got to go out there. I got to be light on my feet. I got to lay on these combinations and then cut an interview and pump my hands over my shoulders like I accomplished something. What dreams are made of. And so Joshua did one of those fights. It was with Francis, and this is a completely different kind of that type of fight, but it's still that fight nonetheless. Jake Paul has abilities to win this fight. A lot of them involve moral victories. A lot of them involve getting out of the first round. And a lot of them would involve getting out of the first 2 rounds and haven't been knocked down yet. One would be getting out of the 3rd round, you've only been on the canvas once, and you got up to your feet, you shook it off, and you're ready to keep going. Like, these things are all victories, but the fight that it's going to happen, I think it's a big deal for Jake Paul. I think it's a big deal for everybody involved. I think it's a big deal that Francis looks at that fight and realizes, oh, these things make sense. These things that make dollars, they make sense. That's his business. This was his opportunity that he missed out on. And now Joshua's going to have a lot of fun. And overall, I see the fight being one-sided. And people keep saying, well, slow down. Wait till you hear what all of the rules under exhibition clause mean. as long as they're throwing punches.
Stephen A. warned that if the fight happens and Jake Paul gets knocked out in brutal fashion, something he predicts will happen inside 2 rounds, then the same people pushing the fight as an epic showdown will pretend to be shocked, claim boxing is dangerous, and milk tragedy for clicks, all while placing an inexperienced fighter in the ring with someone who has the size, athleticism, and knockout power to seriously hurt him.
In 2 fights, those are so-called real fighters, but not for a long time. Chavez is a decade or so past when he was best, and Tyson had been retired 19 years and hadn't been, even when he was still an active fighter, hadn't been at his best over the last decade of his career. So they were guys with big names, but not threats. And the other fighters that he's faced have been a collection of either non-combat athletes, MMA fighters who've decided to come into boxing or had very limited experience in boxing. And then, a couple of guys in boxing that didn't have a lot of experience who were boxers, but had been off, for a long time. A couple of guys you never heard of before he fought those guys, and those guys you'll never hear of again. Of course, the fight against Tommy Fury, which I know he lost, but it was like a split decision, as my recollection says, and it was awfully close. And for my perspective is, whatever you think about it, Jake Paul certainly has gotten better since he fought Tommy Fury. He's certainly gotten better over the last number of fights. Now, is he at an elite world-class level? Probably not yet. He may never get to that level, but so you got to give him props. He's taken on a guy that I spent part of my morning talking to different boxing matchmakers, people I've known for decades in this business, who have vast experience of building fighters and moving fighters and developing them, and they know a lot better than you or me what they're looking at. And to a person, they were like, they don't understand why Jake took this fight, because they think it's, one person used the word of decapitation. So he's going to be a monstrous underdog against a massive puncher. But they're all.
He reminded everyone that boxing is not a YouTube challenge, not a TikTok trend, and not a playground where just anybody can step in and make millions for fun. This is a profession built on discipline, danger, and decades of sacrifice, and trying to turn it into a reality show spectacle disrespects both the sport and the athletes who dedicate their lives to it.
In the direction of becoming world champion again. There's many people who could box. He's not going to make that kind of money, so let's just be honest with anybody else. So let's just be straight up honest about it. He's doing it all for the money. It's all about the money. I did say a year ago, when he got splattered by Daniel Dubois, that he's finished in boxing, he needs to retire. That's just my opinion, that's just my truth. I think he's done in heavyweight boxing at an elite competitive level. So that makes sense. I've been vindicated. He's now fighting fake Paul in what will be a massive mismatch. This is correct, and it's 10-ounce gloves in the professional boxing rules, 8 3-minute rounds. It's not going to go 2 rounds, is it? It shouldn't do. It shouldn't last a round. But we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? It's hard to get your head around. It's hard to know what to say about this. AJ's obviously excited about it, about making some serious bunts. And Jake Paul's telling us that he's going to shut all the haters up by jumping in there with AJ. So what is actually going off? We're not going to know, are we, until the fight actually, until the first bell goes, we're not going to know what's actually behind all this. And we can't start throwing accusations of any sort of skullduggery going off, because we've got to take it at face value. It's not an exhibition, so nothing's pre-scripted. This is a professional boxing match that you can make bets on. So it's got to be a real fight. And if AJ goes in there with them little 10-ounce gloves on and throws the Ngannou 1-2 down the middle, I'm talking about the one that rendered Ngannou unconscious and almost snapped his leg. And Ngannou is a decent fighter in the cage. He's a good MMA fighter, and you saw him, he took Tyson Fury, what did he take him, 8, 9, was it 10 rounds? Can't remember how long it was, but he took him the distance and lost a close decision. So he's quite capable, but AJ's a big punching heavyweight.
The rant only got louder when he addressed Jake's fanbase, accusing them of encouraging delusional confidence by hyping Jake up like a future world champion after he beat washed-up UFC fighters and retired athletes rather than legitimate top-ranked boxers in their prime.
I do think that is how that would ultimately go, though.
What's your level of interest, Mr. Connor Burks? What do you think about this? How do you think people will receive this?
Mr. Connor Burks, yeah, I am very interested in it. I'm already seeing the tweets and Instagram posts online that people definitely want to see this fight happen if Jake Paul is going to fight anyone. I can't imagine a fight that that would garner more interest. It's a legitimate boxer in Anthony Joshua who has massive wins on his resume. He's much bigger than Jake Paul. He is a global superstar, and also he's going to be a massive favorite in it. To me, it just makes sense from a standpoint of if you're Jake Paul and you somehow pull this off and you beat Anthony Joshua, you silence all the doubters out there. You beat a guy in Anthony Joshua that you're not supposed to beat. And then if you're someone that doesn't like Jake Paul, you want to tune in to see him get knocked out, you put it on Netflix. To me, it makes a ton of sense from a visibility standpoint, from getting the most eyes on it. Obviously, you're never going to top the Tyson thing just because of who Mike Tyson is, but right now, especially.
But Stephen A. didn't spare Jake entirely. He actually gave him credit for training seriously, improving his craft, and bringing new attention to the sport, but he emphasized that none of that excuses putting him in with Anthony Joshua, a man who punches like a truck, reads opponents like a chess player, and has knocked out people with lifelong boxing backgrounds. In his words, if Jake Paul wants to prove he's real, he needs to beat real contenders in his weight class, fight young hungry fighters, climb the rankings, earn a mandatory spot, and then talk about Joshua, not skip 100 steps and act like he belongs there already. He even compared Jake's hype to early criticism Floyd Mayweather faced, saying that while Mayweather earned everything through skill, haters called him boring, but Jake is being praised without having beaten anyone remotely near elite level, and that imbalance is what Stephen A. believes is destroying credibility in boxing. Fans online are divided. Some support Stephen A.'s passion and say he's protecting the integrity of boxing, while others say he's just jealous, bitter, or stuck in old-school thinking and that boxing needs spectacle to survive. Jake's supporters claim Stephen A. is underestimating Jake's power and discipline, while critics argue that no amount of training prepares someone for a monster like Anthony Joshua. Meanwhile, Anthony Joshua has largely remained calm, smiling through interviews and dropping subtle hints that he sees Jake as an easy payday that could lead to even bigger fights, a hint that only made Stephen A. yell louder about how insane the matchmaking is. Whether Stephen A. is right or wrong, one thing is undeniable: this fight has flipped the boxing community upside down and everyone has an opinion, from former champions to promoters to online influencers, and the hype machine has taken on a life of its own. And Stephen A. Smith, with his fiery delivery, blunt honesty, and ability to say the things most boxing traditionalists are thinking, has once again become the loudest voice in the conversation, warning that boxing must choose whether it wants to be a respected combat sport or a viral sensation factory built on shock value, and that the outcome of Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, if it actually happens, might define that future more than people realize.